to turn up the volume. I don't know if you guys are seeing me live or if you're going to be watching a replay of this on Facebook or Twitter. I'm going to link to everywhere. So everywhere you can like me, please do. As you know, we are writing daily. We're talking about writing tips, how to write more efficiently, effectively, better across the board, get more queries in, whatever it is that your goal is. We're going to be talking about writing. And today I'm going to go into a little bit of the memoir zone here, but I think this applies to any kind of personal writing that you end up doing. And the question that I'm asking today, and I'm going to be answering to the best of my ability, is how far is too far? So that's kind of a broad subject, but really it's like, there's a line in the sand, and there's two lines in the sand that we're going to be looking at. One is your own comfort as a writer. You know, what can you write about in a comfortable way where it's still true and authentic and you feel confident in presenting those ideas out into the world? And two is, where's the line in the sand for your own readers? And that's an important consideration to take. So on a very personal level, like right now, a few days ago, I got my manuscript for, and by the way, I'm Devin Galaudet, the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler. I've got an MFA in creative writing, creative nonfiction, fiction specifically, as well as the author of the upcoming memoir, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes. So all of that excitement aside, I just got my manuscript from the editor. And not surprisingly, he's recommending cuts and certainly lots of word changes and things like that. And it's the first time in really probably 2 years that I actually sat down and went through the entire manuscript. What surprised me was not any of his edits, but some of the things that I said about people that are alive and are no longer with us, including myself, are a little intense. And so, without question, there is a certain measure of telling the truth and pulling the covers on yourself and really getting a little bit nitty gritty. And then there is the line of what is really acceptable in terms of going too far. So on a real personal level, what I'm probably going to end up doing, like I said, I've just gone through the entire manuscript, and it's set up in track changes, which is a component within Word that allows you to collaborate with other people. So that means if they make a change, I see precisely the change they make. If they make a comment about a particular section, I can read that comment exactly where that exactly in the manuscript where that comment comes from and what it belongs to. And it's actually sort of brilliant. And so I go through the entire manuscript, and I'm not offended by really anything that he did. A matter of fact, some of the things that I expected him to cut, he didn't. Other things that I thought for sure he would keep, he didn't always do that. I mean, for the most part, my book is still my book, very, very, very much intact from what I had originally sent it in, and I worked really hard on it. So that's the good news. And at the same time, some of the sort of like the truth bombs, which I thought when I was writing it, and it took me 7 years to write it. So I started writing this actually 10 years ago. When I was writing it, I just was like completely unvarnished, completely raw, completely just writing down everything that I thought, felt, did. And while I believe all of the things that I thought, felt, did in the book are absolutely truth and certainly my truth, now reading it with really very new eyes, 10 years distance from when I started it, I can say that there are certain things that was like, yes, was this truth? But the question then becomes, is it necessary for the reader to go to the degree in which I did? And there isn't a right or a wrong answer. I think really what it is that at some point, I'm turning the book over, done. I give them the book. As a matter of fact, I've written them this morning and said, I'm going to have it, I'm going to make a couple other passes. So I figure about a week, 10 days, something like that. And so I let them know that I'm going to give them the final, and then that's it. Or, I mean, who knows? I mean, if this needs to go back and forth for a month, then that's what it's going to be. But with my understanding is I'm sending it in and then we're going to be done. And that done, that finality, that final thing is that I have to feel good about the book that I've written. And so that means that I started making notes probably about halfway through where it's like, geez, is this how, like, I'm absolutely going to be changing people's names and places and things like that, just so, if they don't want to say they're in it, then they don't have to say it. It gives them that, that kind of freedom. And I think that's just one of those things that you do in memoir to keep people safe, because if you say unsavory things, then you give them the option to be involved or not be involved. This all said, I had to be, I have to go through it now. I mean, this is happening to me right at this second. Like, how do I feel about saying this kind of a thing about, my family? How do I feel about saying this kind of thing about myself? Does it mean anything in the bigger picture? Do I turn off somebody who is more sensitive, maybe reading my book, and find it offensive, insulting? And truthfully, no matter what I do as an author, somebody is, listen, some of my favorite books in the world have 2- and 1-star reviews on Amazon. So I understand that I can love it and I can think it's totally appropriate and totally cool, and somebody else can read it and come to a very, very different conclusion. And I suppose that when you write a book such as I have, that it's going to divide people to some degree, meaning, hopefully, cross my fingers, that we're going to have some people who truly, truly love what I'm writing and the story that I'm telling. And of course, I have to stand behind it because it's my story. I'm choosing the words to put down on the page. So if you are in the same sort of conundrum, you are starting out your memoir, I would actually suggest that you do what I did, which is come into it unvarnished. Don't worry about who you're going to insult, offend, anything. You don't worry, about sort of like those kinds of issues, because I think it might hinder your writing. Because the joy of writing a first draft is that your second draft gets to clean up the mistakes and the things that you may not feel comfortable about sharing with the world. But I would go with the most unvarnished perspective that you can, so you get to whatever it is that your truth is, even if it's weird and uncomfortable. Then you can decide later whether, one, the kind of information that you're putting out into the stratosphere is going to be acceptable to you, because you're the face. Like, yes, do I have an editor? Absolutely, but it's going to be my name on the cover. And he did a fantastic job, and I will be thanking him in the acknowledgments because he deserves it. And at the same time, I have to just take responsibility for the story that I'm putting out into the world. And at the same time, I also have to realize, if I don't use a particular word, if I don't say a particular sentence, how will that affect the greater whole of the work? And 2, by leaving those sort of like more choice words and those more challenging sentiments, am I going to alienate my reader? And ultimately, the goal is that you want to say something that's going to resonate with as many people as possible, with the understanding is that there's no way to please everybody. So what do I think the answer is? Ultimately, what I think is that there's a line that we're writing that it's sort of like the fence. And really, the fence is, I want to be able to take my words and my truth to an edge where I don't want to feel totally comfortable. Because I think by really reeling everything in, it stops being interesting at some point. Because why is somebody reading a book by somebody they don't know? Because they want to read something invigorating and exciting and different, and maybe weird or dangerous or whatever that thing is. So I want to keep making sure that I'm providing something that is going to be interesting and inspiring for somebody to turn that next page of your book. You're competing. Like, I went into a bookstore not that long ago, and there's 100,000 different titles, and I'm going to be competing with that. So I want to make sure that I write as compelling as possible to maintain the interest. So that means I have to probably give more of myself than what I feel comfortable with. And that's a big chunk of the book. But then there is that line, do I want to create discomfort just for the sake of creating the discomfort? And the answer is no. I can be uncomfortable because it's my truth and it's weird, right? Who exposes, this is like a diary entry that it's like a 250 page diary entry. So all of your secrets get laid out to bear. And I think that's good. So if you're writing a memoir or a challenging short story, I think you lay yourself out there to be criticized and challenged by people. And at the same time, I think you want to be mindful to not making word choice simply about being a jerk. And so that's the line that I'm attempting to ride. I just finished my first scanning of the book. I'm going to wait, I think, 2 days. I'm actually going to be meeting with my editor tomorrow. I'll probably wait a day after that, after we've kind of gone through some of these bigger notes, and then I'll start pass number 2. And then I will be having to make the hard decisions of, do I really, really, really and truly want somebody to know this about me in the way that I'm framing it by using my words and the choice words that I'm going with. So anyway, that's what I've got for today. Always remember, please leave comments. I respond to all questions, and like everything, I hope you like me on Facebook on DevinGalaudet.com, which is going to be in part of the links here. And I hope that you come in every day with us when we talk about writing better and more and tackling the tough questions like these. And, again, find me on YouTube and Twitter, and we're going to keep writing better together on a daily basis. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you guys tomorrow.